Hello, welcome to Quackalope, and today I want to try and do something different than I've done in the past. I want to try and start and carry on a conversation with you, the audience, the community that I'm building here. We just hit 500 subs, and hopefully in a few years' time I'll look back and think this number is small, but I don't ever want to forget what that amount of people really still means to me. It's exciting. I've been watching and been thankful for the numbers growing daily. And whenever I have a video that gets 60, 70, 100, 1,000 views, every single one of those means something. It means I'm creating content that people are interested in, engaged with, excited about. It means I'm doing the right thing. And I'm behind the scenes doing what I enjoy. Putting videos together, crafting stories, telling narratives about an industry, a community that I love. And so in this video, I want to do my best to try and start a conversation, to engage with you, to talk and hopefully create a series of videos that aren't just me talking blindly to a camera and thinking through the answers myself, but are actually responses and conversations and networks of thoughts that a community of people have tried and tested out. Today's topic, the thing I want to lean into today, is about how we teach people games. I've been testing this idea for the past month or so after a friend brought up the conversation with me. He was telling me about him and his current fiance and how he teaches her how to play games, because he's usually the person that has to sit down, read the rule book, figure out the game, and then invite people over to play. I think probably a lot of the people that are watching my videos fall into that camp. We are the people who are pulling our friend groups together to play all of these board games. We're the ones buying and reading the board game rules and watching the videos online and doing our very best to discover the best systems possible to convince our friends to play with us and to facilitate them having a good time, because it's not just about getting people to sit down at the table with you. I want them to walk away going, "That was cool. How do I get that game? How do I play that game again? When are you hosting another game night?" Those are the responses we want. And I believe a large element of that all starts with the initial rules question. How do we teach games? What's the best way to approach a new gamer or an experienced gamer or a friend or an acquaintance, whoever it is that you're trying to sit down across the table from you? So I was telling you about my friend and the system that him and his fiance came up with to make the learning process as easy as possible for her and for him when he's teaching her. And their solution, the answer that they've been experimenting with, was this. They sit down with all the components laid out in front of them. He goes over maybe a paragraph worth of content, 60 seconds, right? The lore, maybe the win conditions, maybe a little bit about what style of game this is, if they'll relate to that, such as a area control or a resource management or a deck builder, if they're a more experienced gamer and they understand what that terminology is. And then he approaches her and he says, "What would you like to learn first?" Now the phrasing of that is key, not what would you like to learn or what are you interested in or what's drawing your attention, but what would you like to learn first? Their theory, and the theory that I've been experimenting with a bunch of my different gaming groups, is that by setting the foundation deep enough so that someone understands the questions they're able to ask, and then giving them the ability to ask questions at the very start of the learning process, opens the door for them to lean into elements that they find interesting. And let me try to tie this down a little bit. The way I learn games has always been through the lore. I create a story in my head, a narrative. I visualize the game I'm playing, and I create a sequence of events or a series of rules that then tie to that narrative. So if I'm rolling dice or building cards or gaining experience, or if my end goal is to try to get as many victory points as possible by stealing treasure from the dungeon and getting it back up to the top, all of that for me is contained within the narrative, lore, and story of the game. That's how I remember how to play. I'm not very good at remembering very specific, minute rules, but other people learn different ways. I have a friend that largely learns through a systematic process of rules. They want to know point A, B, and C, and the subsections of each point, and how the game plays, and what each piece and tile means in the game, and they could care less about the theme or the lore of the game. And then there's a lot of people that just fall on various spectrums of that chart that have their own entirely different way of learning and playing a game, and there's a ton of people that fall somewhere in between. And so the concept, the idea is to present and give them control of the way they learn. Set them up 60 seconds with the lore, the concept, maybe the victory conditions, what they're striving for, what the end result of the game is going to be, and then crack that door open for them. Allow them to ask questions. What would you like to learn first? Is there an element on the table that's drawing your attention, that's distracting you? Is there something that you know you need to figure out before we start diving into all of the other elements of this game? For me, it would be questions about the lore. Maybe I'd be asking about some of the artwork on the table or some of the cards that are kind of bright and drawing my eye. Maybe I would want clarifications on how the end game works, how it ties into the theme of the game. For others, it may just be the player board sitting right in front of them. Maybe that's the thing that's drawing their attention more than the board and the booklet and the cards. They just need to figure out what the numbers directly in front of them are and what they relate to. And there's a strong likelihood, there's a big chance that a person won't have a question. I'm not 100% sure how the system works yet. That's one reason I'm reaching out to you. I'd like to figure out what the best way to teach a game is. What are some of the strategies you use? I know in the small gaming group where I've been testing this question around, there's been a few different moments where someone just was a little put off by the question. They were shocked by it, or we hadn't given them enough information about the game for them really to know what questions to ask. That's some of the elements we're still working through. That's why we now have the 60-second setup conversation at the very beginning. The lore, the theme, the end game, just a little bit on the mechanics. And so for now, the best option I have is to present it to the community that is engaging with my videos, to figure out your strategies, to figure out how you like the strategy that me and my gaming group have been coming up with. Now, if you've seen any of my other videos, if you've left comments on any of my other videos, I make sure that I get back to every single person that comments. I try to engage honestly and actively with anyone that wants to have a conversation. And the same thing will be even more so true with this video. I'd like to talk with you. I'd like to have a little bit of feedback. So leave a comment down below talking about all these elements that I've rambled about for the past few minutes. And hopefully in the next month or so, I'll be able to pull the information and the knowledge that we've gathered together and make another video. Make another video about how you teach someone a board game. Maybe narrow it down a little bit. Maybe find a system of steps or best practices that we can share as a community. Whatever the case, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's had some good ideas or stirred up some thoughts in your head. I thank you for being a part of the community that I'm building here. And we'll be back to our regularly scheduled program on the next episode. Stay in touch, stay in contact, get out and play some games. This has been a Quackalope conversation. We'll see you next time.